kicked off the answer to the question, which was the same for him. Walz was asked that first about Israel and Iran and how Israel should respond and should there be an immediate response. And so Vance was asked the same question, and he had his 2 minutes. And when he started off talking about how he grew up, I literally thought he was making fun of Kamala at first. And I was like, oh, this is going to be so good. He's making fun of how she answers every question with growing up in the middle class. But it was serious. Like, he was genuinely just trying to get people to understand who he is.
Right.
And he did ultimately answer the question. And I thought it was very effective. He actually got people to know who he is a little bit and answer the question.
I thought so too.
It was really, really good. If you missed it, here it is.
I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are.
Yeah.
I was raised in a working class family. My mother required food assistance for periods of her life. My grandmother required Social Security help to raise me. And she raised me in part because my own mother struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I went to college on the GI Bill after I enlisted in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq. And so I stand here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90 minutes that if we get better leadership in the White House, if we get Donald Trump back in the White House, the American dream is going to be attainable once again. Now, to answer this particular question, we have to remember that as much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos, Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line. Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration. What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies, and God forbid, potentially launching against the United States as well. Donald Trump recognized that for people to fear the United States, you needed peace through strength. They needed to recognize that if they got out of line, the United States global leadership would put stability and peace back in the world. Now, you asked about a preemptive strike, Margaret, and I want to answer the question. Look, it is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys. I think that's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
He was such a good pick. Trump picked the best person for this job. I just can't think of another person who would have been better. I can't. I'm sure there are people who disagree with me, but he's brilliant. He's calm. He's dignified. He outclasses Walz in every way. Just outclasses him.
That's so funny because that was my title. Can you see that?
Really?
Walz
oh no.
Outclassed.
Oh my God. Is it really? That's so, God, we brain share. But it's
I know, right?
But he totally does. He absolutely does in every single way. Like and I love that because listen, I know a lot of people think that Trump is harsh. He can be very Trumpy, you know? Right. And honestly, I think that when he chose a VP, when he chooses any VP, when he chooses a running mate, because he's done it before, he likes to find somebody who balances him. And Vance is he's a great balance for him, but I think he's exponentially better than Pence.
Oh yeah. Without
exponentially.
Question. Without question. He did get in this zinger, which I really appreciated, reminding everyone, hey, you're currently, like, your running mate is currently in charge.
You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And Governor Walz, you blamed Donald Trump. Who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years? And the answer is your running mate, not mine.
It was at this moment that he knew he fucked up.
So great. It's so true. And he said that a couple times. He got that in a couple times. It's like, why hasn't she done it?
Right.
She's had 3.5 years to do it. She's a big fat loser. I mean, he didn't say that, but paraphrasing, of course. I would have said that, but he didn't say that. Yeah.
Then, and we haven't even gotten to the moderate. I was literally screaming with rage at Margaret Brennan. She is the biggest hag on the planet. And we'll get to her ridiculousness in a second. We do want to remind everybody that in these tumultuous times, especially after yesterday, because obviously world events impact markets and that can have an impact on your retirement plans. And so the best thing that you can do for yourself and your own retirement planning is to learn about Bulwark's strategies. They are friend and sponsor of the show, Bulwark Capital Management. They have a free common sense investing guide that you can get your grubby little paws on simply by calling 866-779-RISK or go to knowyourriskradio.com. There you can get that investing guide. You can also make an appointment if you'd like to with Zach Abraham, who is our buddy from Bulwark, who can really, really help nail down what you've got going on in your current retirement portfolio and give you some strategies going forward. And that's all for free. So check it out, knowyourriskradio.com.
Advisory services offered through Trek Financial LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. Any references to performance of securities are thought to be materially accurate, and actual performance may differ. Investments involve risk and are not guaranteed. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Trek 24308.
It started with JD Vance talking about border issues and specifically Springfield. And then mayhem broke out. So we'll kick it off with Vance's fantastic, by the way, answer about the border.
Look, I think what Tim said just doesn't pass the smell test. For 3 years, Kamala Harris went out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president, or a few months before, she says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America. Parents who can't afford health care, schools that are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president
Senator,
again.
Oh, wait a minute. Is this okay? So this might be, hang on.
Governor Walz brought up.
Okay, so he continues to, this is where he talks about Springfield. Okay, so he's still, this is still the same conversation, but this is when it gets scrappy.
The community of Springfield, and he's very worried about the things that I've said in Springfield. Look, in Springfield, Ohio, and in communities all across this country, you've got schools that are overwhelmed. You've got hospitals that are overwhelmed. You have got housing that is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes. The people that I'm most worried about in Springfield, Ohio, are the American citizens who have had their lives destroyed by Kamala Harris's open border. It is a disgrace, Tim. And I actually think, I agree with you. I think you want to solve this problem, but I don't think that Kamala Harris does.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So in this next moment, the moderators who were not going to fact check all of a sudden decided to fact check incorrectly what Vance has said about the status, the legal or illegal status of all of those Haitian migrants in Springfield. And then Margaret Brennan freaking tries to cut him off.
Oh
and
my God, they did. And then they cut the mics.
Yeah.
Mock.
I could not believe it. I was
Infuriating.
losing my mind. And by the way, before we even show that, why everybody knew what the time constraints are and they fit into them just fine. Like Vance would finish an answer and every single time they would say, "Senator, your time is up," as if he was still trying to talk when he was done. Like, why did they say it? And constantly she was saying, well, we just have so much to get to. You would have gotten to a lot more shit if you would have stopped saying that.
And if they would have spent the appropriate amount of time on each thing, like they spent an inordinate amount of time on January 6th. I was like,
my God,
can we move on now? Like,
an abortion.
Yeah, like we get it. You guys really like these two topics and you want to spend a ridiculous amount of time on these two topics because they're liberal talking points and we get it. Okay. I mean, it was another debate where the moderators are liberal. Like we get it. We know whose side you're on. And it was the 3 against 1. Again, it was obvious to anybody with half a brain. That's what was happening there. And you get to the point where you're just like, here we go again.
Yeah.
It's like we're doing this again. But he was good about at least fighting back a little bit. And when they cut him off, all of us, I'm sure we're in the audience, like at least the television viewing. I was too. I was just like, we're doing this again. We're doing this crap again. Oh my God. They're such Karens, these two, which I hate. I hate using that word, but they were Karens. They were ridiculous. They weren't fair to him and they were fact checking him and not fact checking Walz. And so it's the same crap, different day. But I think, but Vance handled it in a glorious way. He
The
did a
other
great
problem
job.
that they kept doing, which I could not, this made me rage too, is that they said at the very outset, the rules are, we're going to ask a question. The first person gets 2 minutes. The other person gets 2 minutes. Then there's a minute for rebuttal, a minute for rebuttal. They kept not letting Vance rebut.
Right.
So like there would be Tim Walz would say the things and then they would ask Vance another question instead of just letting the conversation happen, which
I
is what
agree.
is supposed to happen in a debate.
Mhm.
That made me crazy. And then they wouldn't do that to Walz. They would let
Right.
Walz just rebut. And it was, oh my God, they were so unfair.
It
But
was
this
unfair.
the worst,
Yeah.
this was the worst moment is when the scrappiness happened with the Haitians. Here it is.
Your time. Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn now to the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
the rules were that you guys weren't going to
we're-
fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That
Thank
is
you,
the
Senator.
facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by
Thank
our
you,
own
Senator, for
leadership.
describing the legal process.
Kamala-
We
and
have
Kamala
so much
Harris
to get
opened up
to,
that
Senator.
pathway.
Those
We have
laws
so
have been on
much.
the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The
we
CBP
want to have
One app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala
Cut his mic.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We
Oh
have
my
so
God.
much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining.
I just,
Oh my
that
God.
was infuriating.
Oh,
I know. This is the thing.
rage.
We don't want to hear what you have to say. We don't want to hear the facts because we're skewed here, right? I mean, we are liberal moderators. We just want to hear what Tim Walz has to say. This stuff's not happening. No, this stuff's not going on in these towns. We don't live there. We don't know anything about it, but it's not happening. They're there.
Yeah, and a couple of
Biatch.
reactions midstream. Eric Erickson was like, good grief, these are terrible lecturing moderators who insist that they're not fact checking and then are fact checking. Can we please just let Jake Tapper and Dana Bash and Brett Baer do all future debates?
I don't know, do we really want them? Do we really want those
They,
people
well,
to
they
do
were
it?
good. I mean, Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, to their credit, did it okay. Like when they were the moderators, they were not anywhere near as bad as these two bitches.